You tell me, does Russia act as a partner as much as a liability for China?
Well, Russia is certainly a partner for China, but I would say it's increasingly a junior partner. And by the way, Xi Jinping did not use the phrase no limits partnership. Neither did Vladimir Putin. The Chinese, it's disappeared from the Chinese vocabulary. But he is a partner because, as John Kirby said, they are united. They criticized the destructive and hostile United States during that meeting, and they are united in the goal of creating a new world order where the U.S. has a much smaller role than it has today.
Well, when you say that they are united, and of course we have heard them previously describe their friendship as having no limits, with the lack of real tangible outcomes of this meeting between Putin and Xi, are we actually to understand that perhaps there are some limits on this friendship?
We also saw, by the way, that Putin and Xi reaffirmed that nuclear war can never be won and nuclear weapons must never be used. This is a statement from the permanent 5 members of the UN. But we do know that Xi Jinping has privately criticized Putin for his use of nuclear rhetoric. Of course, there are limits to the partnership. We don't know what was discussed in private between Putin and Xi. But if you look at the official documents, you know, it's a wonderful statement of all their common interests, that they're factors for stability and progress in the world, and that their trade is going to increase. But we already see there was no discussion of the Power of Siberia 2 pipeline. This is a new gas pipeline to China that the Russians really want to have, because they're not selling gas or much gas to Europe anymore. Chinese aren't interested in it. They want to diversify. And Chinese banks, we know, are being increasingly shy of dealing with Russia because China fears secondary sanctions. So there are limits to this partnership. But they do have these overriding interests in common, and that is their criticism of the United States and their desire really to make the world safe for authoritarian leaders.
I know some have suggested recently that, in fact, North Korea is the real partnership with no limits with Russia. But, Angela, I want to point you to the war in Ukraine here by way of Russia. Of course, earlier this week, Secretary of State Antony Blinken showed up in Kyiv. That's what he said about U.S. support for Ukraine.
But ultimately, Ukraine has to make decisions for itself about how it's going to conduct this war. A war it's conducting in defense of its freedom, of its sovereignty, of its territorial integrity, and we will continue to back Ukraine with the equipment that it needs to succeed, that it needs to win.
Angela, there was some tough reporting this week in the New York Times that would suggest U.S. aid for Ukraine, of course, delayed by many, many months, with a long-running debate here in Washington, may have arrived too late, that Ukraine is, in fact, on its heels right now as Russia takes advantage of this moment. What do you see?
Well, first of all, most of this aid hasn't arrived yet. Some of the weapons are beginning to trickle in. But, you know, the Russians have launched this offensive against the second largest city in Ukraine, Kharkiv, which is very near the Russian border. The Ukrainians are really on their back feet now. They don't have enough men. They need to mobilize more people to fight there. They don't have enough equipment. The Russians have been taking steadily bits of territory there. Their aim is also to frighten the population. They've had to evacuate a lot of people from Kharkiv. They're still destroying civilian targets in Ukraine. So this is a very tough period for Ukraine. And they really do need this U.S. assistance, but they also do need to find the soldiers to fight this war. They've lowered the conscription age, but it's still not enough.
Well, Angela, as we see the difficulty Ukraine is having in real time, fighting Russia, where they're getting support from allies, perhaps on a delayed basis. We know that not all other surrounding countries are quite as friendly to Ukraine's cause as others. And this is something that we heard from Senator Mitch McConnell, of course, the minority leader. He spoke on the Senate floor yesterday about Hungary and the way that his Republican colleagues have vocalized their support for Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Take a listen.
A NATO government that fawns over a Russian neo-Soviet imperialist, a European nation that rolls out the red carpet for greater predation, coercion, and espionage from a communist regime. This isn't where America should be taking our foreign policy cues.
What does it say, though, Angela, that some in America are taking foreign policy cues from there?
Well, yeah. Well, we do know that some MAGA Republicans are pro-Russian. They're anti-Ukrainian. I guess if you listen to Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's one of the more extreme on this. They've had all these contacts with Viktor Orban's government and, of course, in Hungary. And the Hungarian government is pro-Russian. It's against helping Ukraine. The Slovakian government is the same. The prime minister, of course, was shot a couple of days ago. But, you know, he's a fervently pro-Russian and anti-supporting Ukrainian leader. And then there are politicians in different European countries who have the same view. And you do have envoys from the Trump campaign going to countries like Hungary and other countries and trying to form, you know, their own foreign policy going forward. So this is definitely a split in the Republican Party on these issues. It's been there for some time, but I would say it's intensifying now.
Earlier today, Bloomberg sat down with Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Our David Rubenstein had a great conversation with him, and they talked about a range of issues that, of course, involved our southwestern border, but also got to the matter of terror. And I want to have you listen to what he said, and we'll have you respond, Angela. Here's Secretary Mayorkas.
I would say the threat of foreign terrorism has reemerged with a greater level of significance, and the threat of domestic violent extremists, individuals or loose affiliations of individuals who are radicalized to violence because of ideologies of hate, which are only increasing, especially after the October 7th terrorist attacks against Israel.
Angela, the Secretary's remarks follow testimony from FBI Director Christopher Wray recently, in which he spoke about the potential, these are his words, for a coordinated attack here in the homeland, in the U.S., akin to the ISIS-K attack that we saw at the Russia concert hall a couple of weeks ago. Is he right?
Information that I don't have, but I'm sure that they're right. We saw that certainly in Russia. We warned the Russians about the attack. We warned specifically where it might come. They didn't listen to us. And I think we do have to be concerned about it. If you look at what's happening on college campuses around the country, the kinds of ideology you are hearing, the kind of rhetoric, both from the left, obviously, but then sometimes from the right, you can see that these ideologies are catching on among large groups of people, students. I'm not saying they're terrorists, but definitely we're a more polarized country. And I think the concern about another terrorist attack is growing. And, you know, I think we have to be concerned about violence after the November election, depending on what happens and who's willing to accept the results of that election.